YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Swerve. I ain't gonna do too much talking. Right now, we're doing a deep dive on the unspeakable horrors of the deep sea. There's something different, I don't know. I just been trying to find different shit to react to. There's been some different shit that's just been going on in my head that I've been wanting to like get some knowledge about, or at least like pique my interest. And these are one of these videos, or these are one of these channels that kind of pique my interest when I'm like offline, not recording. So let's get to it.
Say that I'd rather eat 10 pounds of Popeye's biscuits with no drink than ever go out into the ocean. Well, I'd rather ride
I agree
cross-country
with
on a
that.
bike with a hot grill for a seat
I'm
than
not
spend
afraid
half
of
a
the
second
ocean.
in the deep sea. There's a lot of living
You know what I'm
nightmares
saying?
and
I ain't
paralysis
afraid
demons
of the
come to
ocean,
life if you sink
but
deep enough. And the
I'm curious about what's in
megalodon
that motherfucker.
is not one of them. You'll often hear this
I
thing
ain't too
about how the
curious to go
prehistoric
find out,
apex
though.
predator never got discontinued. It's just chilling a step above hell in the abyss. This is cap. For actually three good reasons. One, there just isn't enough food to sustain a 60-foot you to the natural order. Two, if nature did keep the same jumbo jaws that peaked in the Pliocene, we at least would have seen a body by now. And number three, why do y'all want this to be alive so bad? I promise you there's way worse
Facts,
things
bro.
down there. Like I would evacuate my bowels if I ever saw a giga great white
Like
shark.
fact,
But
bro.
put me in front of a
Like, you gotta think
T-posing
about it.
squid.
Like niggas that go on cruise ships. I've been on a cruise before. I be wondering shit like that. Like that ass. Like what if I'm on a cruise ship? This big ass fucking megalodon or some big ass sea creature that y'all want to be alive so fucking bad. That motherfucker just kind of like tilt that motherfucker boat a little bit to the side. Like I don't need that shit happening while I'm in the ocean, dog. Like I'm gonna be scared, nigga. I might shit myself dead ass right before I die. I'm gonna shit myself dead ass.
More bricks than the entire city of Newark. The big fin
Like I
squid
don't
is
need no
easily
shit like
one of
that
the
in that
most
ocean,
disturbing
dog.
things
I'm already
alive as
scared
I'm
enough.
saying
I
this.
know how to
It's a
swim, but fuck,
T-posing
I'm gonna
predator
get
with
nervous
arms
as hell
estimated
if
to
I
max
fall
out
in
at
that
just
fucking
under
shit.
30 feet. Scientists believe the big fin catches bodies by dragging those arms, which can be easily 20 times its own body length, along the ocean floor like trawling nets and feeding on whatever poor soul accidentally bumps into them. You're gonna hear me say believe or we think a lot, and that's because we don't know a whole lot about them. Almost every sighting and virtually every specimen studied were either juveniles or paralarvae. We have no way of knowing exactly what their final form could look like. For all we know, this could be Junior, and we just haven't seen Mama Big Fin yet. Who would have thought that just putting elbows on a squid would instantly turn it into the spawn of Satan? Oh, and if you thought the Big Fin was just this slow, passive floating predator, then you're seriously underestimating the ocean's ability to massacre your mental health. And if you're curious, this video was taken about 7,000 feet down in the Gulf of Mexico. But considering they're believed to be the deepest living squids at about 20,000 feet, I have a theory. This is a juvenile, and the big boys are the ones shacking it up down in the crotch of the ocean. But good news, the big fin probably only feeds on small fish and crustaceans. Bad news, there are squids big enough to beef with the biggest predators on the planet. And the biggest predator on the planet that isn't a disgraced former YouTuber is the sperm whale, which on its own would have to be one of the most traumatizing things to witness during their 2-hour hunting expeditions down in the deep sea.
I don't know how people
well,
like
the
humans.
tankiest carnivore on Earth
I don't know how they
regularly
find
runs
the
fades with the
courage
giant
to just
squid.
go
And by giant, we're talking about calamari
and
growing
look
to an
for
estimated
shit that's
40
not meant
feet
for us to
long.
go look.
Not
I
only are they
understand, like we
themselves
always,
predators that hunt using
as
20-foot
humans, we always
tentacles, they're
evolving and
opportunistic
shit, but
cannibals
like,
that would
come on, like,
100% murk their entire family reunion for some
it's some
calories.
shit we just gotta
now,
stay
nature
away from.
high-key screwed up their character design. They have a
Me
donut-shaped
personally.
brain and an esophagus running through it, meaning if they swallow something big enough, not only do they run the risk of choking to a flatline, they can also factory reset their entire personality through severe brain damage, which is why they mitigate this by shredding their victims with a razor-sharp beak and what is essentially a tongue with teeth, the radula. That beak is such a weapon that you'll rarely see a sperm whale that hasn't been tattooed during a struggle with a giant squid. And while the plus-size cephalopod usually loses in a war with the whale, they do not make it easy. But the most disturbing thing about them is that eye. Giant squids have the most physically imposing eye in nature, with it being roughly the size of a soccer ball. Contrary to popular belief, huge eyes don't exactly help it see further, but it does mean they're terrifyingly good at noticing
Nigga, the
objects
eyebrow just
giving off
did
their
that,
own
man.
light, which is a lifesaver since when their biggest optosperm whale is on the hunt, modern-day Leviathan disturbs glowing creatures like jellyfish and crustaceans who flash in response. Having eyes as big
In the
as their heads
afterlife,
means the
bro,
giant
just put
squid
me
can
as a
detect
bird,
and
dog.
use those flashes to avoid becoming a course. But that also means that
if
if you ever go
reincarnation is a
swimming in
thing
the
into
Giga Squid's
animals,
area
bro,
code, the
just make
flashes
me a
you'd
bird. I
create
don't
mean
wanna be
that
no
while you might
animal
not
in the
see it,
ocean.
the same animal that
I don't
does its
wanna
own
be no
kind doing
land
would know
animal
exactly
'cause
where you
flood
are.
happened.
And
Let me just
honestly,
be a
there's
bird or
only
something,
one
like-
thing that could be worse than getting
Let me
stalked
be
by
like
a
a
school
vulture,
bus-sized
like a hawk
headfoot.
or something.
There's
Like,
another
I don't
squid with
know,
hunting
fucking
tactics
bald
so
eagle or some
spiritually
shit.
upsetting, I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm going to go ahead and use a lifeline.
The Humboldt squid, also known as the red devil. I'm Lindsay, by the way. Hi. Humboldt squid are found in the eastern Pacific Ocean, typically between 600 to 2,300 feet below the surface of the ocean. And their nickname comes from the way they use their pigment cells called chromatophores to communicate. You're probably familiar with chromatophores through videos of different cephalopods using them to change color, blending into their surroundings, and even dreaming. And Humboldt squid notably use them to turn bright red when they're aggravated, hence the nickname Red Devil. It's very on brand. They're also extremely predatory and have been known to act aggressively towards scuba divers on rare occasion, which becomes a bit more terrifying when I tell you that they can get to 8 feet long and 100 pounds. Now you might be thinking, Lindsay, that is not that big. What about the giant squid and the colossal squid that can both get to like 40 feet long? Well, I haven't told you the best part yet. The Humboldt squid is known to live and hunt in groups of up to 10, no, up to 100, no, 1,000, yes, in groups of over 1,000. 1,000 squid.
How the fuck y'all know that shit and that nigga made it out survive
While
to tell
hunting in
that
these
story?
groups, they use their chromatophores to communicate with each other, coordinating movements and attacks, allowing them to take down larger prey, dragging them into the depths until they go unconscious. Scientists have
Somebody call
identified
South
some
Baby,
of these
man. Get his
communication
people in order,
patterns,
dog.
as you can see in this little chart, but still don't know exactly what any of them mean. But regardless, that sounds like one of the worst ways to be unalived in the ocean. Oh wait, this isn't a TikTok collaboration. That sounds like one of the worst ways to die in the ocean.
So as you can see, whether it's being confronted by a Humboldt block party or squaring up with a live-action Kraken, there are many aspects of the deep sea that end up with you putting your therapist up a tax bracket. And a lot of that's because of this cute little thing known as deep sea gigantism. The idea that the cold temperature, the dissolved oxygen, and the lack of pressure from predators allow some animals to escalate to the biggest and most terrifying versions of themselves. Exhibit A, the Japanese spider crab, which can measure 12 feet across.
I know some black women is gonna love that motherfucker if that bitch was seasoned. Ooh. Hey, you get that motherfucker in the fucking baller, put some lemon, some herbs, tonics, crawfish ball seasoning, some crab seasoning, whatever you want to do with that motherfucker, some green peppers, bell peppers, red peppers, all that, onions. Now we talking. Nigga, you don't scare me, nigga. Now I put your ass in a pit, nigga.
And weigh as much
Eat
as a
your
human
ass up,
toddler.
pause.
Only thing worse than a giant spider crab is a giant crab spider.
Man, you don't scare me, nigga.
The new Auto
I'm
Tune
from Louisiana,
2026
boy. You know
has
we do
been
to you,
in
boy.
the
Put your ass in a
because
boiler,
this
nigga.
version runs lighter.
Put your ass in that pot, nigga.
This is an Antarctic sea spider,
your
a
ass in
dinner
that
plate
pot,
sized
nigga.
demon
I'ma
spawn
get
that
happy
hunts
when I
by
see your
sucking
ass,
the
nigga.
life out of its prey through its proboscis. Now technically, they're not actual spiders, but also I imagine most people watching technically don't give a f, especially since this one looks like it identifies as a face hugger. Then there's a giant isopod,
Alright, that
which
I'm
is
not
essentially
eating.
an aquatic cockroach big
I
enough
mean,
to
we
be
might
cradled
eat
like a
that bitch
baby.
too,
No
so I
clue
don't
why
know.
you would though. And if you're looking for a truly supersized animal crossing, the oarfish should be on your list. The giant oarfish can grow to well over 30 feet long, and there have even been claims of those in the neighborhood of 50 feet. Proof that back in the day when we had stories about sea monsters, they weren't lying, they just didn't have all the names yet. Also, if you caught that pun earlier, we're friends now. But with deep sea gigantism and the endless expanse of ocean acting as a canvas for Shaitan to practice his art, if you dive deep enough, there be monsters. For
That's what I
example,
be thinking, son. Like I feel like they got some shit in the
this
ocean that
isn't
we
an
just
animal.
really don't
It's
know
a
about.
group of animals joined
It gotta
together
be
in
some
something
shit
like a
that's
hive
just, like,
mind. So we're not talking about it.
unfathomable, bro.
We're
Like,
talking about them.
some shit we
And
can't even
cephalophores
think
like
of.
this
Like, I
come in many
promise you,
forms,
it's some-
like the
it's
Portuguese
something
man
down
of
there
war armed with venom to ensure that
that
the
might come up
excruciating
one day
experience
and
of
just be
meeting
like,
one
fuck
is
everything,
permanently
I'ma
etched
just
into your brain. And there's a
take over the world
Prioidubia,
type
a
shit.
giant cephalophore that can flex a total length of
I
up to
don't know. That
160
if it was
feet.
to be
And even
alive,
though
it
it's a
would've
collective
been
group of
said, like,
tiny
sure,
animals,
so
its
unless that bitch
length
just
could
wait
humble a
until,
blue
like,
whale, making it technically
the moment.
the longest
I don't
creature
know.
on the planet. Or at best, a modest second, since the bootlace ribbon worm has been reported to reach 180 feet in length. And it's toxic because the ocean, and of course it is, with nasty smelling mucus potent enough to life deprive the crabs it likes to eat. Like I said, whether it's Lucifer's tapeworm or a flying spaghetti creature, there be monsters. And it gets so much worse than a giant worm, because as terrifying as the deep sea is, it's also nasty. And there might not be anything more repulsive than the hagfish. This loogie linguini feeds on the rotting corpses and carcasses that sink down into its domain. And since they don't have any actual teeth, the graveyard guppy feeds by sliding into an opening and eating the decomposing body from the inside out. And you would think that something that eats like a casket wouldn't have to worry about getting put on a plate itself. Again, you're giving the ocean too much credit. As self-defense, the hagfish will sweat buckets of slime, a phlegm jacket that's thick enough to clog the gills of anything hungry enough to F around and unlucky enough to find out. To the point where this is the end game of a truck transporting hagfish on the highway crashing. Now, you've definitely seen this picture before, but have you ever stopped and asked yourself what they were doing there in the first place? You remember how I said nothing that eats like a hagfish should ever have to worry
Shit
about
nasty,
getting eaten? Well, simple. For these hagfish, their final destination were dinner plates in Asian countries such as South Korea, where they're considered a delicacy. Now, I'm not one to judge other cultures, but we seem to have a habit of constantly trying to eat all the things nature went out of.
Put some onions on that motherfucker. You know, you might get me. I ain't gonna lie. You put some onions on that motherfucker. I mean, you know, it look like chopped up squid. That actually might be squid. That's actually squid. That's not what he talking about. This actually is squid. So I mean, they put onions on this bitch. So
Way to tell us not to. But one thing you won't see as a main course is something ironically named after a fruit. The sea cucumber is like the hagfish in that its meal prep consists of all the things we normally flush, burn, or bury. All the soul evacuated bodies that sink down to the ocean floor instantly get put on the cucumber's grocery list. It's a literal bottom feeder, and I mean that since they'll also make a meal out of feces. But like with vultures, if Thanos had beef with sea cucumbers, the world would become an infinitely more disgusting place. That's not the only way sea cucumbers contribute to society. They're also often used as a protective bunker for fish and, well, let's just say they break in through the back door. Oh yeah, it's a violation of the highest natural order. It gets worse when a pearlfish decides to have a playdate right next to its prostate. I don't even know if they have a prostate, but you get what I mean. And if that makes you uncomfortable, here's an ad to give you time to mentally prepare for what's next. This adorable little guy is known as a basket star. It's a type of brittle star and an echinoderm, which actually makes it a close cousin of the sea cucumber. If you ever learned about fractals in geometry, then that's why the repeating pattern of branching arms might look familiar. It's also why the US is really wasting $20 billion a year looking into space, because the real ET is happening right here. Because of the unsightly way basket stars get from A to B, they've also earned the nickname sea snakes. I feel itchy all of a sudden. However, even though it looks like something Lucifer would use to pleasure himself, they eat mostly zooplankton and are pretty much harmless for the most part. And honestly, that pretty much describes 80% of the nonsense in the deep sea, only really harmful to your peace of mind. Like take the frilled shark. Having been around for 80-something million years, not only is the frilled shark a living fossil, it's likely nature's rough draft beta version of sharks today. Also, don't let this video fool you. They can grow to a respectable 6 feet long. Also, they can be pregnant for 3.5 years, which honestly makes about as much sense as everything else down there. And in terms of your mental health, the frilled shark is pretty harmless until you look them in the mouth. The devil's fleshlight has hundreds of needle-like teeth to ensure that anything that gets caught in there doesn't get a second chance to pursue happiness. And for a shark that's been around long enough to have attended Saturn's wedding, I don't know why, but every picture of them looks like they're struggling with their own existence.
Like a human.
Like I said,
they
though,
got,
they're
like,
not a threat to humans, but like I also said, therapy ain't cheap, so if you don't want to end up on a couch, don't look a frilled shark in the mouth. But yeah, you'd be surprised at just how many types of sharks you'll find in the same neighborhood SpongeBob got stranded in that one time. You have 20-foot sleeper sharks that are somehow able to use stealth to just spawn and inhale sustenance like a water Kirby. Speaking of sleepers, in 2015, a Pacific sleeper was recorded in the Solomons Island. Why is that important? Well, its home address was right under an active volcano, proving that if any animal had plot armor, it'd be sharks. Then you have the ghost shark, which, okay, yep, you got me, isn't an actual shark, it's a close cousin known as a chimera. The ghost part though, that's on brand. They kind of remind me of the dry bones fish from Mario. The ghost Nada shark doesn't even have the teeth you'd expect it to have, but instead they have plates that they use to grind up food. But since nature's constantly overcompensating, chimeras do have venomous spines that are harmful to more than just your mental well-being. But by far the weirdest thing about them, chimeras have a tenaculum on their forehead. A tenaculum is a reproductive organ, meaning this fish has a on his forehead. Venom and that aside, this fish fresh out of Tim Burton's wet dream is actually pretty cool looking. And I'm just gonna say it, I think they're cute, and I'm perfectly fine with standing on that hill alone. However, I don't think you'll find a single soul on this next shark's hill.
Feast your eyes on the goblin shark, a demon dog-looking fish with a mouth that snaps like nobody's business. They're rarely seen, but are known to live in oceans all around the world, at depths of up to 4,200 feet below the surface of the ocean, and are estimated to get to 18 feet long, which is really big for a deep-sea shark. You might have seen videos online of their jaws just fully ejecting from their brain case in a process called slingshot feeding. It's kind of what they're known for. Their upper and lower jaws lunge forward away from the skull, engulfing their prey. I know it probably seems ridiculous and almost alien, but it's actually not uncommon. Most fishes have jaws that aren't entirely attached. One might argue that the goblin shark is the most extreme example of this look until you see a video of the slug-jaw wrecks who use suction feeding to snatch up their prey. They look like they have a trombone stuck in their mouth. Goblin sharks have a particularly long snout. It's not for nothing. They have sensory structure with pores all over it to help them locate their prey, like squid, fish, and crustaceans. And I am personally grateful I am not a squid fish,
Nigga, they
or
didn't turn
crustacean.
them
Yeah,
motherfuckers into
goblin's the right
that.
word for the only shark in
That's
the
what they
world with a
didn't turn them
receding
into.
gum line.
That's
But you
what
gotta
it is.
admit,
That right
eating your
there.
own jaw to catch
That
calories
shit
is
ugly as
pretty
hell.
metal, and you're gonna find that a lot of the creatures rolling in it deep have evolved some of the most creative ways of bagging groceries.
What if
Motherfucker
instead of
look
designing
disgusting.
thumbnails, you could just paste your YouTube link into our AI and it would create scroll stop.
Probably the most popular is the fish that nearly turned Nemo into an orphan. The anglerfish has two defining personality traits, and one of them is that fishing lure hanging right in front of those life-canceling jaws. That light actually comes from bioluminescent bacteria shacking up inside a modified fin. So when a bite-sized light work swims up to the light thinking it just cops some easy protein, the angler ensures that some fish out there never sees its father again. The other thing anglerfish got clout for is their mating habits. I'm not gonna get into it, just know that if your marriage looks anything like theirs, you're gonna need both a divorce and a restraining order. And you know what? Intensive therapy on top of that, extra-friggin-diciously. Nemo's paralysis demon isn't the only deep-sea creature to weaponize light. This distinguished gentleman is known as the stoplight loosejaw, and his defining trait is that it uses a red light to hunt, which turns out to be a massive cheat code, since the longer the wavelength of a color, the less energy that wavelength has, and the faster it gets absorbed by water. And since the color red has the longest wavelength out of all of them, it's the first one to get absorbed. This is why red light can't reach the deep sea, and the animals living in the abyss that are red actually appear black, which makes it easier for them to hide from predatory smoke. But with the stoplight using red as a searchlight, it's pretty much cracked at this version of hide and seek. Not to mention, since most of the life down there can't even see red, it's able to catch bodies while also not giving up its location to predators or the prey it packs up. This fish really evolved a whole wall hack and a real-life invisibility cloak. Tell me that ain't crazy. And that freakish overbite ensures that once prey is found, it's lost forever. But why hunt prey when you could just sit and wait for it to come to you? That's the entire playbook for the deep sea lizardfish. Just look at that smile.
Ugh.
You know he's on nefarious timing. And at over 2 feet
I don't
long,
like
they
that
earned the
motherfucker
title
was
of being
smiling
one of
at
the
him. That shit
premier apex
disgusting.
predators of the deep sea. As a habitual camper, they lie waiting for life to pass them by
Yeah, I
before they
ain't gonna lie,
lunge
bro.
and
The
use
ocean has some
hypodermic needles
ugly-ass
for teeth to
motherfucking
cancel
animals.
it. And with apex standing for anyone
Like,
providing smoke
humans
gets
ugly too,
extinguished,
bro. Like,
lizardfish don't
humans
hesitate to
ugly,
turn their own
bro. Sea
kind into
creatures, bro.
coffin
I done
fodder.
seen some
And with the whole
ugly-ass
point of
humans,
those
but some
teeth
sea
being to hold
creatures?
struggling, panicking prey in place,
Sea
they make
creatures
sure
might
they
got
don't
the
live
ugliest
long enough to
people
learn from their
behind.
mistake. But as much of a
Let
therapy
me
build
think
as
about
Gecko Guppy's
I
mugshot
seen
might
some
be,
ugly-ass
it
humans.
might
I'm
not
not
even
gonna
be
care.
the worst headshot in the ocean. Not as long as this is still
Never
a
mind,
factor.
never
I
mind. Sea
don't know
creatures
anyone
got
who
it.
would
Sea
waste the
creatures got
oxygen
it,
trying to
dog.
defend this.
I would. Many say
Sea
this is
creatures
a
got
face
it.
only a mother could love. Well, then
Sea
maybe
creatures
he
got
is
it,
my
dog.
son. This is the deep sea telescope fish, one of the most stunning
That
creatures
bitch
of the
ugly.
deep tropical oceans. They're found at depths of about 1,600 to 6,600 feet below the surface of the ocean. I can't say that normally. Surface of the ocean. And like you'll see if you look up photos of them online, they are often photographed at unfortunate angles that don't do them any justice. They orient
shit look like
themselves
some shit off of
upwards,
Five
aiming
Nights at
out
Freddy's.
vertically in the water column, as they use their specially adapted eyes to hunt for the silhouettes of their prey. There are two species of telescope fish, Gigantura indica and Gigantura chuni. Don't be fooled by their genus name, which makes them sound like they're gigantic. That is not the case at all. Indica only gets to about 8 inches long and chuni a measly 6. They are just little guys. Gigantura actually translates to big tail, specifically. They are about half tail. But if they happen to latch onto a snack that's a bit bigger than their own size, that's no problem at all. They underwent a series of skeletal reductions that allow for more room to just fold it in half. That's right. They are expert folders. In 1925, scientists found a 5.5-inch long viperfish inside the stomach of a 3-inch long telescope fish. They described it as neatly folded, an incredible quality possessed by the lovely telescope fish.
Yeah, I'm sure if we gave it Blistex and a hairline restoration surgery, he'd be cute, but that's just me. That being said, there's a lot of pretty dope things just chilling in the deep. Take the barrel-eyed fish, the fish with a transparent head that means it can spot ops or
It
prey
got two
directly
balls on
above
his
it,
eyes.
thanks to those two green gummy looking orbs that are actually its eyes. Or the ultra-rare giant phantom jellyfish, equipped with 30-foot arms that makes this ET understudy the length of a whale shark. And when I say rare, I mean this jelly's only been seen like 100 times in the
That
history of
motherfucker's so
mankind. So the fact that
beautiful,
you're
look like
watching
an
this right
egg
now
yolk
is
on
kind of
top,
wild.
and then
Then you
like
have the deep sea
blankets and
Dumbo
shit on the
octopus that
side.
copes with stress by turning itself into a ball to discourage predators from eating it.
Pause? Pause. Pause. Why that? Never mind.
This right here looks familiar, yeah, right to his thighs. The vampire squid does the inverse, as they'll turn themselves inside out and into their own personal panic room whenever they're pressed by a possible predator. And how about a sea pig for you? Take everything I said about sea cucumbers and forget it for a second, because Honestly, they're just really cute in a way I can't fully explain. But it's not hard to see what makes this squid instant serotonin. Rosia pacifica, or the stubby squid, is actually more like a cuttlefish. It's also a cuddly fish, and it's nature's apology letter for the sheer trauma it saturated the ocean with. It's actually real, and those arts and crafts looking eyes help it catch prey on a nocturnal schedule. It's also important as an environmental indicator, since scientists will often study their responses to changes in water pH and use that to determine how polluted the water is around them, which you would think would earn this anime octopus the respect of the scientific community. Well, you'd be wrong. There's a video where some scientists found one, and let me just say, not even Hiroshima got roasted that hard. But that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you go ahead and drink water, hug your moms, go subscribe to Lindsay's channel, link will be in the description. Shout out to Lindsay.
Alright, man, we ain't gonna do any shout outs on my channel. The fuck, nigga. Anyways, that's gonna wrap this video up. Y'all like, comment, subscribe.